Well, welcome everybody. This is still webinar series 1, but webinar 2. And we kind of skipped around last time and skipped up to the middle of our Digital Citizenship in Action book by Dr. Mattson. So today we're going to go back and take a look at the chapters 1 and 2. And there are a few things that we did talk about already in our October meetings, but here's a little more in depth. And before we get going, I guess just some housekeeping things. Remember that if you attend the webinar, just in place of attending TIE, I guess is the way to say that, you attend all 4 webinars and you do all of the extra activities offline, then that would equal the 1 college credit. And if you're going to TIE and you want an additional college credit, you could pay for that by doing all of that. But also, if you just are attending the webinars and you would like a CEU certificate, you can probably just shoot Julie or me an email and we'll take care of that for you, because it would be 1 hour of CEU. I know for South Dakota, 15 hours equals 1 credit, and this would be accepted. I'm pretty sure it would work out with North Dakota and Wyoming. Okay, so that's the housekeeping stuff. And of course, back to our book, Digital Citizenship in Action. Dr. Mattson, I would say overall, her, I guess her goal and her hope for our students, and same for us, is that they would participate as digital citizens, not simply observe. So rather than simply observe and use, they would also contribute. As this quote on the first square here on our, I'm going to call it a handout. It's not really the digital handout, sorry.
Our resources for today.
Our resources, our HyperDoc, yes. I really love this quote, saying that any digital tool teaches us literacies. It's like saying a pen or a keyboard teaches us writing. And again, that's our major question for today. What's the difference between digital skills and digital literacy? And then again, I had this little quiz. I'm hoping it works. How's your digital literacy? They're calling it digital literacy skills. And so sometimes it's confusing. What do they mean when they say skills? What do they mean when they say literacies? But really, this assistant professor, I'm not Miss Bali, and she is at the American University in Cairo, Egypt. She has several things out there, other resources and articles, and I've linked to some of those here in the introduction. It really, it all goes together. And what we often hear about our kids is, oh, you know, they're the digital generation, they know everything, they can do everything. But some of that is back to that old thing, like you can be tech savvy, but not really tech smart. You might be able to run your smartphone, but for what purpose? What I found with my students is, yeah, they're great at texting, they're great at Instagram, they're great at Snapchat, but very few of them could compose a formal email. So those are the differences, I think. Using the devices, using different apps, but for what purposes? And so let's take a look at that. How's your digital literacy? It says, take this quiz.
Hold on. All right.
And I think everybody should be able to, you all got a copy of this, you should be able to click into that. It is part of an article. There we go. Am I a digitally literate teacher? And I love the idea, and I think that's Dr. Mattson, and much of her message in her book too, is that we do need to lead by example, and we need to be the mentor in this. And it needs to be taught, not just assume that because they can use the device that they're doing all of this. So we're going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and take the quiz. I guess, Julie, go ahead and start it, and we'll do it on the screen too, huh?
Okay.
So what's the correct meaning of the social slang term LOL? And we laugh about this because my sister in the medical world says it means little old lady, long before there was anything like texting or slang. And then one of your students is struggling on the 12th page of a Google search. What should you suggest to help this student find more relevant information? I suppose we could put up our hands when we're done or something in the chat box. Which is a popular news website famous for reporting fake news with a satirical twist. Okay, and you want your students, you want to show your students that social media can be a useful source of information. Which social platform would be best for finding video content?
Joan, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Did you say we had a copy of this?
Yep, on today's resources, so all the resources for today, which were sent out in the webinar, link information, and then I'll also quick share it with you guys.
Oh, in the email that you sent?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll drop it into chat too, so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't think about dropping it into chat. Thanks, Julie.
No problem. Thank you.
So I'll drop it into chat for you guys also. So
there we go.
and then once we're in the resources, it is that second link there, and then you have to scroll down a little bit to see take the quiz.
Right. And then come back on your own time and read the rest of the article. It's pretty interesting. So your student referenced a news website and a paper that you're unfamiliar with. It looks official at first glance, so it should be a credible source. You've been asked to give a presentation to fellow teachers at your school on digital literacy. What's the best program to create this presentation? Now, I have to disagree with that one because, you could do a HyperDoc on docs, but anyway.
Well, and see, that's what I think too, is that it depends on what you're doing and what you're sharing, and yeah, so I'm with you, Joan.
Yeah. But, right off if we don't think too hard, just some basic answers there. So checking the URL of websites is important when spotting fake news. Can you spot the correct URL of the official ABC News website?
That one? abcnews.go?
I had to look this one up.
Which one is it?
Just pick, see what we get.
Oh my gosh, the pressure. All right.
What program would be helpful to suggest to students so they can work collaboratively on a project from different locations? I know what they would try to use, but what should they?
Snapchat.
Yeah. These are all fake news websites, but which is a well-known blog famous for publishing humorous takes on current events? An article posted and shared on Facebook can always be considered a trusted source of information. Oh, 100%.
Did we get 100%? Oh, wow. Cool. As long as I don't think too hard, it's not too bad.
No, and really my whole point there was just to see those types of questions, that those are things that we do every day, hopefully, and that come up every day with our students. I know with my students, of course, it's an ongoing battle that just because, Google puts that as the first result, that might not necessarily be what you need. And also, I have to say, in learning how to curate, and especially using Wakelet, they get a Google results page, and you know how sometimes on the right-hand side there's an information box, especially from Wikipedia. They want to curate that. I'm like, but this is a Google results page. This is not a page. It is not a page of information. You're not in Wikipedia. And I think some of you probably have that same situation. I'm talking about 8th graders, but I'm sure it happens older and younger. Yeah, Carmen, I didn't know the Borowitz report either. And the ABC one, I had to look that up, because rarely do I look at ABC News online. That's just me.
The thumbs up and the thumbs up is under our participants tab, and on my computer I have to do the more button, and then I have a thumbs up option there, and so, or there's the green check which generally shows up.
Right. And then also, if you're not seeing participants, you just mouse over at the bottom of your screen, and that should pop up for participants.
People have found that thumbs up tab. Yay.
Good.
I know,
good.
the thumbs up, it just depends on my screen. Good job.
Oh, and Carrie has joined us too. But so basically, that might be something you want to use with some of your older students, or even with your staff members. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And again, to show us that we can certainly do a lot of searching, we have a lot of skills, but even as, you know, experienced teachers and librarians, there were a few things that gave us pause. At least I'll speak for myself. There were a couple that gave me pause. And then that one about PowerPoint that I didn't quite agree with. But again, it's what you're used to and what you have access to. So Julie, let's go back. And again,
we want to talk about here on this below on that article, the wondering after we do the quiz,
yes,
the technical proficiency is not equal to digital literacy. I mean, we've mentioned it a little bit, but this table for me really helps explain the differences there, because I think, like Joan indicated, you know, the kids know how to use Instagram, they know how to use their phones, but they don't necessarily know how to write an email, and so those kinds of things. It's a nice chart if you're needing to communicate with people.
And what's interesting to me too, I often have to remind them to go clean out their email inbox, because they forget to even go check it or look at it. And some of it is because it's a school thing. That's not an everyday life thing for them. But to me, when you go out in the real world, email is still a pretty big item.
What do you guys think when you look at that chart? And go ahead and chat. Or you can unmute yourselves and talk.
Yeah, unmute and talk to us. There aren't that many of us.
I'd love to be able to print it out and put it up all over the school.
Well, go ahead. Let's see, what is it licensed under?
As we are now really observant of that. I think it's probably copyrighted, Joan.
Probably. Well, we could call it fair use.
Well, sometimes they'll allow, if you ask permission, if you know how to contact them, and I've done that before.
Yes. Definitely contact the website. And while I've done that, the
Spreader Balanced.
Yeah, it was something that the state of New York was using, and I contacted the creator, and she's like, "Oh yeah, use it. Share it with the whole state of South Dakota." So you never know. It's pretty easy. It sounds complicated, but not always.
Yeah, no, I've had really good luck too when I've asked for permission. People are generally really gracious to say, "Oh yeah, of course," and they're actually pleased that you want to use their stuff rather than. Right.
Just at the bottom, of course, you give attribution, but at that time, this person didn't have it under Creative Commons.
Does anybody else have any thoughts?
Hey, this is Stephanie. I had a quick thought. With the digital skills versus digital literacy, when I'm looking at the digital skills, I think about, when you're teaching kids phonics and they're just learning to read sounds and stuff versus actually comprehending the text. And I think that's the parallel that I was taking with this, is that digital skills is more just learning the basics, while digital literacy is actually comprehending the site and the tools.
Right, and also the situation. And I think, many of the standards talk about, reading or write, or especially writing for an audience, that you write appropriate to your audience. And to me, this is the same thing if you look at the email example. One of the hardest things is get the kids to write complete sentences, not use texting language when we say it's a formal email. They certainly, know how to communicate, but it's who are you communicating with and what's the purpose of this communication?
Just had that big conversation with my 8th graders as well.
Yeah, we have it almost every day about, you have an extensive vocabulary. The 4-letter words maybe aren't the best choice right now.
You guys.
Well, I always tell them, unless you've been kicked by a bull lately or something, terrible like that.
My best joke is we just did something on plagiarism, and I asked them to write some things about what they learned about plagiarism, and I gave them a hard time after as I graded them. I said, I know not all of you are going to go to collage, but it seems that a lot of you are afraid to get kicked out of collage school. I said, that's really sad that you're afraid to get kicked out of arts and crafts, because they all wrote collage instead of college.
Right. I get it.
That's awesome.
But really, it not only is it about the clear communication, but it's, this is, of course, your digital footprint, and this is your participation and what you're adding to the, I think Dr. Maxon talks about we have, the face-to-face communication, but we also have these communities within our digital or our online spaces. I know they always talk about the library as being the third space often, but I'm thinking really you're online, if you want to call it your third space, or now it's your fourth space. So, all right. Anything else about this difference between skills and literacies?
Well, I found that emailing in the school world and then emailing in the job I have now is very different. The way you communicate in a business way is very different from how you communicate as a teacher.
Exactly, because it's more formal.
Yes.
And you're representing a state level organization, and it's much different than like you just shooting your colleague an email that says, can you cover my 4th hour, or can I rearrange the schedule, something like that. Definitely, that's a good point. And I think that's something that has to be taught. And again, Dr. Mattson in her book comes back to that over and over. Sometimes we assume, especially with the kids, we assume too much. It's something that has to be taught. Can any of you remember when you first started sending emails, or even used that as a tool for part of your job? I'm thinking it's way back to AOL. Do you remember that?
Is that like LOL, Joan?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's been in our lives quite a long time, but for the kids, now, even though they've had, digital access, many of them just at school, but many of them everywhere they go, it's not every tool that they are familiar with or use appropriately for communication, depending on the situation. So back to our HyperDoc again then.
Alrighty. Are we moving on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, this is always there for you guys to go back and revisit. And there's a Dr. Bali has a video too. But moving on, there are some other things that are in the book and that come up often, I think, just in the literature and in conversation, that, you know, you say, well, yes, I taught a lesson on digital citizenship, we're done. And then there are ones that say, well, you know, we do a 6 weeks course and then we're done. But really, just like anything we do, to make it relevant and useful, it should be embedded, it should be integrated, it should be part of our everyday life. Just like we use, you know, I keep coming back to the email example, but we use email in every part of our professional lives, I'm pretty sure. And so it's not just one lesson covers it all for our kids. And I found this poster, which I thought was fantastic. This infographic poster comes from ISTE. And they talk about, we really want our kids to be good citizens, but there is a little bit of a difference between being a good citizen for your physical community and then a good digital citizen for your online communities. And again, we have, like, personally, I have 2 Facebook, one for that I do professional work on and one for my personal work, because those are very different audiences. And sometimes I think also our students don't always separate those types of things. We talk a lot about their email is only for school and educational purposes, not so they can say what's up to their buddy, you know, across the classroom. Well, we have some of that. I'm sure you all do too. So does anybody have any comments about what's going on at your school as you're teaching kids to be good citizens? Is it just integrated right in there that part of that is being a good digital citizen also?
I had an interesting situation with the school librarian, and she was asking for resources that she could use in her library in teaching kids library skills. And I suggested one thing that she could use was Common Sense Media.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a good place.
And she texted or she emailed me back and said, well, you know, this is fine, but I need stuff for library skills.
Oh.
And so so she wanted stuff on the Dewey Decimal System, how to teach them the Dewey Decimal System and those kinds of things. And, you know, she said, her husband teaches in the school. She said he can teach that stuff in his computer class.
Oh, I see. Well, you know, again, that's an age-old thing with school librarians too, because there's the library and there's the tech department. My background is coming from Illinois, is the library was the tech department. But I found that to be a bit different depending on what district you're in. Like in South Dakota, you were talking about a school in North Dakota?
Yes.
And I think it's different school to school, district to district.
Yeah, I just thought she had a very narrow view of what a librarian should do. And she wasn't a credentialed librarian or even had any librarian schooling.
Well, I hope that you will point her to some of the resources, because, of course, you know, knowing the Dewey Decimal System is important too, but it's just one part of what's going on. Something that I think is really, that I just discovered, and they're just talking about it on Twitter too, actually Dr. Mattson, the author of our book, put something out today, is on the left-hand side here across from the poster, it says Crash Course Navigating Digital Information. Well, you go ahead and click into that, Julie. This is a new YouTube series from John Green and his brother. And the Crash Course, I don't know if anybody's familiar with their series of videos. They are, in my opinion, they're hysterical. They're really for older kids, but I put it here because I think it's good for us as adults to take a look at some of this information. This is the information preview, but they've already done, maybe 3 or 4 of these in their series, and they're always there. They're not going to go away. So when you have time, take a look at one. John Green is, for those of you with elementary may not know that he is a quite famous young adult author, but he's also famous for all the things that he and his brother have been doing on YouTube for years. I'm thinking, can we get beyond this preview? I don't know
What
what's
do
under
you want me to, oh, do you want me to scroll down? Sorry.
Scroll down and see if it shows more that are already out there. Probably
Oh,
not.
Here, let me,
At the time I put this link in, the series hadn't started yet, but I know it's underway already. So
yeah, let me click
Usually
on
if you
some more.
click on Crash Course, it'll give you a listing of all their
I have
there's-
so many, I have so many like little windows open that I can't
there you go. Yeah,
function
there's
right
John
now.
Green. Yeah, he's the author of The Fault in Our Stars, and that's been made into a movie, and many others there. It's like tons of different topics, but I was very excited to see that they were addressing this whole thing about, digital literacy, and in a fun kind of, offbeat sense of humor, which I really enjoy.
So here's all of
And
his
he-
courses.
Right, he has a lot of other things that you might be interested in too, or share this if you're not aware of this. Share this with your staff. And again, I first heard about it because he was tweeting about it himself that it was coming.
Yeah, I know and Kristen, Dr. Matson's been tweeting about it quite a bit too lately. So it's been, I'm excited to have the videos online, just because I think it's hard to find good digital literacy videos sometimes, so it's nice
Right.
to have new
Right.
ones.
So go ahead now and let's look at that perspectives of digital literacy. Of course, you can always come back to the crash course, and there's more information on that link for the infographic poster too, but let's take a look at the perspectives. And again, this is from the International Literacy Association, but if you go on down, okay, there are these, Doug Belshaw, who did his doctoral thesis all about digital literacy, has come up with this list of C words. And he says this makes it all easier to understand. And these are 8 essential items, these C words, that he feels are a part of digital literacy. And then, of course, if you see in his last paragraph, he also says, but if these are constantly changing as our digital world is constantly changing. It reminded me of the C's from the 21st century people, but and he's looking at it through the eyes of the digital world and also being a participator, a creator, not just a consumer of what's out there. So the cultural, cognitive, constructive, communicative, confidence, creative, critical, civic. And again, blending all of that with what you would do. We want our students to be good members of our school community, the broader community, but also the online communities that they are a part of. And again, hopefully some of this rubs off on what they do privately in their kid communities like Snapchat. I'm not going to go into more of this, but I wanted you to see that list that he says of the 8 essential things, and that you can come back to that article. Because one of the things Dr. Matson talks about too is not only, surveying ourselves to see where we are with this information, but your staff members and maybe your students. So if we go down to the apply,
Do you want me to stop sharing now so you can share?
yeah, just a few things while we go into this. I have okay, hang on, I gotta grab the right mouse. Sorry, I have more than one computer going. And one of the things that she talks about, and I thought was very, oh my, what did I do with that? Okay, guys, I'm really not great at sharing this, but let's see what comes up.
We practiced and it worked, so.
There we go. I just have to get to it. But one of the things that she talks about is you certainly, no matter what age your kids are, but certainly younger, you need to give them some direct instruction on this, being a participator, not just a consumer, and being a creator, and to let them know what your expectations are, because they're representing themselves. Here we would say they're representing themselves, their family, their school. And so two of the things that I use that I think are really good, because they're not out there, their privacy is protected, and they're not out there just putting anything up. One of the ones we use is KidBlog, which sadly used to be free, but it's not. And yet it's not that expensive. I do pay for this one myself. But each class has their own blog. I'll just click into my first hour. And one of the things here is that you can set it up. And so I put up a post to show them what is expected when we introduce this, when they create their account. And again, I don't use anything that they cannot log into with their Google account. So they only have to know one login and one password for everything. And that's everything we do in our school, not just in 8th grade. So you can change all your settings, you can change how you share, but one of the things I love is that they can post. But it does not go public to the, right now we're only sharing with our other classmates, but it doesn't go public to those other classmates until it's been approved. And there are sometimes it's, they test. Don't they always test us? They test, see. And there have been some inappropriate things, or there's been times when they just totally missed what the whole objective was. So on here, we did use this with our partners from Texas. And I gave that the Texas teacher the same rights that I had, so that she could approve or disapprove of what her students were putting up. We had them introduce each other. We talked about what was appropriate, what you would want another 8th grader to know about, and how you could start a conversation and go back and forth. And then we used this to post our assignments for the Global Read Aloud. And so it got a little, you can see here there are 154 posts. It got a little large because I have quite large classes and hers were even bigger. But again, this was, and many of you talked about doing Edmodo. I had tried that out too, but this is one that I kept coming back to. It just was easy. The kids like it. They get to put a picture up. They don't like to put their own picture up. But you see, well, that's one I put up of a group, but you see the kinds of things they chose. And of course, here's my example to show them, the same types of things that I included, I expect them to include in our welcome slide. And then it's very easy. Even these comments that go to the post have to be approved before they're seen. Now, I could make this public for everybody to see, but right now it's just like first hour is sharing with the kids in the Texas first hour. And to me, it's so easy to go in and change your settings, depending on what your lesson is, depending on what you're doing, to show kids how they can be, of course, good digital citizens. Does anybody else use KidBlog? Or what other platform do you use that you could share with us?
We've had people use EduBlog, but I haven't been on it for a long time.
And is that one free? I've heard of that one too.
Yeah, I could not tell you.
Well, that may be something I'll look into. Thank you. But here's another thing too. Let me go over to Google Classroom. And again, things are changing so rapidly. We are going to use KidBlog when we do the digital learning day at the end of February here. But just this last week, KidBlog and Google Classroom now integrate. I don't know if you noticed on the KidBlog screen, but up here, let me go back. This did not used to be there until last week. But that is so cool because, again, not only does it help that they work together, but you can post things back and forth. When we did this back in October, November with Refugee, I had to keep telling the kids, your assignment's on KidBlog. It's not on, I would put on Google Classroom, go to KidBlog. But now that they're integrated, that's not even any confusion anymore. I haven't done any big assignment or units since that happened last week, but I plan to. So that's another plus for that. But with Google Classroom also, you can, and I don't know how many of you use it, but you can have the practice this communicating with each other, or what I often do is practice them communicating from 1 hour to the other, like third hour with fourth hour, that type of thing. But also because, let's say, oh, my essay, of course, is not going to be due tomorrow because we haven't been in school for 2 days. You can send them messages here, but right now, because I have a few students, let me give you an example. We were going over an assignment, and all of a sudden I had a kid want to go fill up a water bottle. Well, come to find out, it wasn't his water bottle. Somebody else had sent him a message through Google Classroom and said, ask Ms. Upella if you can fill up my water bottle for me. You know, so I had to turn some of that off because they were doing some inappropriate side talk. It wasn't horrible, but we were off task there. But under the settings for Google Classroom, you can decide who can post, who can answer. It's so simple. And they have really jazzed it up. They've had quite a few changes in Google Classroom over this school year. So the kids can see their stream, which is right here, and that's all me because I've turned off all the things they were saying. And then their classwork, we put by categories. And then, of course, you're looking at the teacher version, so you're seeing things a little bit different. My goal in life is to have the kids use Google Calendar, but that hasn't happened quite yet. And then it's so easy to add or move kids to different classes. And also, you can have co-teachers, and you can do within your building and outside of your building. But again, to me, this is a great step to use that mentoring and to show kids what's expected and what's acceptable, and to have them create and share. First in a very narrow space, online, but then it could go out to the public. So basically, I just wanted to show you about KidBlog and Google Class because those are the two I use the most, but I want to hear what you use the most and what you have your kids doing as far as online communities or posting.
Melissa commented in the chat that she uses Padlet for quick responses to stories that they read, and with Padlet you do have the functionality to do the comments and the posting, but you can also comment on posts, so it does give you that ability to
that back and forth conversation.
Have that conversation, yeah.
Right. And then, often I've seen where kids just put their stuff up like, okay, I've completed this worksheet, but we want them to interact with each other. And we have that problem at First on KidBlog. Well, if you're telling somebody about yourself, and then you read about them, why don't you need to ask a question about something that they've written, something that they're interested in. So it really was a skill that we needed to teach them earlier this fall, that, it needs to be a conversation going both ways, not just, well, I posted it. It's that part of what's appropriate and how to respond back.
And that is something that Dr. Mattson really emphasizes in her book, is that she gives examples of how to model those conversations and how to give kids those tools, because it isn't something that's necessarily intuitive. And I mean, and as much commenting and stuff that happens on social media, you'd think that everybody already knows.
They just get it, right?
Yeah. Right. But I mean, and teaching them the proper way to do that is so important.
And again, it's what we're doing and for what purpose and who's our audience. So anyway, I just wanted to show those quick, and I think I'll go back to your screen, Julie.
Okay, so you stop sharing and I will share.
Yeah, and then, unmute yourself or put it in the chat. What other things do you guys use?
Quickly, could I add, I use the Google Classroom. This is Erin, by the way. And I just started after the winter break using it with my classes, and I quickly found out I had to check the mark that they can't comment on the board. Again, nothing super inappropriate, just off topic. But we are talking and discussing about making Google Classrooms for like our after school programs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And just because we have always students wondering, oh, when do we meet again next? And just having that responsibility where they can answer each other. And I apologize, my 1 and 3-year-old are in and out of here too. So
no problem. You can probably hear my dog barking too.
But has anyone ever used it for their after school programming?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think that's an excellent idea. I use it for, we have what we call our 8th hour is our enrichment hour, and my school newspaper kids I've set up a separate class just for the school newspaper. But then all of the English teachers in our district have a class too, and we communicate back and forth. And this is another thing while I'm trying to get my kids to be checking their email, is because every time you post something, they get an email, they get an alert. You could turn that off, but I like leaving that on. Because my kids who are absent, or kids who go for sporting events, they get all the information the kids in the class get, but they have to remember to check their email. So
yes,
I think
I love that.
For after school.
The email part, for 2 years I've been fighting them, since I only see my students bi-weekly. And I'm like, check your email. That is the way I communicate with you. And this Google Classroom, all of a sudden, because they automatically email all the students in that class, it's just been wonderful. And they're finally starting to get in the habit to look at their email.
Right. But then I want them to look at it and then delete it if they don't need it.
Yeah, that's another challenge.
Well, I love that idea. That is a great idea. And
we're still trying to teach them. Your book was due 2 weeks ago. Check the date when that email was sent.
And I think, in the chat, Carmen is saying, it's not intuitive to collaborate. It's not even intuitive for adults, but it's something I think that we do a little bit at a time. But I think too that my kids get excited about it when it's something in the real world. I cannot tell you how excited they were to get responses back from those kids in Texas. And some of it was like, oh, they're doing the same stuff we're doing. And well, there was a lot of video game conversation too, which was exciting.
But Carrie comments that as a newspaper advisor, she's interested in trying Google Classroom with her group of students. And so because they don't have a journalism class, they struggle with communication. I think that would be a really great way to facilitate communication. KidBlog, yes, there is a fee for KidBlog. Joan, you said it's not too expensive?
No, I think I don't even pay $100 a year. It's less than that. Like I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm thinking it's $59. But this is like, at first it was free, but then you want to do more. I'm pretty sure there's nothing free about it anymore. But to me, it's worth it to be able to use their Google sign-in. And now I'm so excited that they have collaborated with Google Classroom now, and you can post both. They could do work in KidBlog and post it to me in Google Classroom, and I can grade it in Google Classroom. Google Classroom has a whole grading thing. Of course, we use Campus, Infinite Campus, the federal one, so nothing integrates there. But I love, because I can give the kids instant feedback. You can comment on their work. We do a lot of peer editing because they can share. And that's something else. I don't know. They must have been reading my mind lately, but that Google Classroom and KidBlog did, but also Wakelet. I did a project where the kids were doing something in pairs, and you can't share Wakelet like you can Google Docs. Well, that was 3 weeks ago. Now you can share Wakelet like that, and they can collaborate on the same collections. So everybody, I think, is thinking this, and they're also, what's nice is many of these platforms are listening to what works best in education. Uploading, have I tried to download the CSV file? Oh, I don't do DDN. Sarah, do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what you meant for your state grading system.
Oh, my grading system is the federal one. It makes it complicated because we're a Bureau of Indian Education combination school.
That's right. Has anybody done the CSV file to DDN though? I have a group of ladies that are looking into that. I got them going on Google Classroom and they like it, but they don't want to have to re-enter that information.
Exactly. I understand. Yeah, let me know if you find out about that. But I know it won't work with mine, so I haven't pursued that, but that's cool. Oh, EduBlog is, oh, thanks, Shelley, for looking that up. It's free by the Pro plan. That's not bad for $39.95, not at all. But again, what I was looking for is something that as a teacher I could control before it went to anybody else. It's so that we could edit, so we could have those individual conversations that, you know, this isn't the audience you want to say that to, maybe. So
that makes sense. You know, in Padlet you have that functionality too. You can approve comments and you can approve postings on Padlet, and you know, in Google Classroom you have that. So it is nice when we have those resources where you can start to do that. Those conversations and have that opportunity.
And maybe it's just junior high kids, but you know, I start with very locked down, and then we open it up as I see that they can handle it. And I think, and again, that's what Dr. Mattson is saying. Just don't assume that they can handle it. You need to give them those experiences.
So you shared on here also you have Teen Tech Week.
That was my next thing. Yeah, go ahead and click on that, Julie. Okay. Teen Tech Week used to be a really big thing from YALSA, the Young Adult Library Services Association. Again, it's a group of ALA. But what's interesting, I thought, to look at it for this topic is that they are re-looking at Teen Tech Week because, again, you know, tech isn't just a week. It's every day. It's integrated. It's like digital citizenship and all of this participation. This is what we do as part of our everyday lives now. And so I haven't heard what they used to be every in March, but I haven't heard what they have are planning instead. But on their wiki, they still have lots of resources and ideas. And I don't know about you, but in my library, I used to just make up things to celebrate. If it wasn't a national event, like we had, you know, a family reading club, different things like that. Because it seemed like if you made a big deal and made it a big event, it got more attention, it was more special. Plus, you know, I kind of like to throw parties, that type of thing. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention if you weren't aware of that, because I think some of the things can be adapted younger too, definitely. And I don't know, do you want, you could click into that Teen Tech Week page or not. So anyway, no, it's okay. So then what I was,
sorry.
I feel like maybe I'm just moving on and interrupting people. If they want to share other things that they, yeah, this is a lot of just promotion ideas and different activities in there to look at. Other ideas or other favorites that you are using now? I'm glad to hear about Google Classroom, and I'm going to mention that after school to my district because we do that too. But I don't know that anyone else is using it in that way. Okay, so then while you're thinking and so on is sharing, and I'm looking at our time, the follow-up activities, if you want to do this webinar as part of your 4 webinars for 1 credit, is just to read the chapters 1 through 2 and take a look at what are your social media policies and procedures in your district, and then perhaps you know, you can Google and find lots of them online from other districts, but perhaps share among yourselves in our cohort, people in your state or out of your state, and see what else is going on. And then this is something that we did in a, you know, a real quick manner in our October meetings. We had you take Dr. Mattson's survey that's on page 15 to 17 in the text. But we'd like you to create a Google form or whatever you use. You could put your questions in Plickers or any other survey tool like SurveyMonkey. And just, you could do it in paper or pencil too. You don't have to use all the questions. You can adapt the questions. And as part of this class, put out a survey, maybe to just, a certain grade or certain number of students, certain staff people, or maybe a group of parents, and then analyze your survey results. And then, of course, please discuss all of that on our Facebook group, or let us know, some of your aha moments for that. Again, we want the 4 webinars and the additional work offline to add up to just 15 hours. So this is just something quick to do. But I think just like when we took the survey at the beginning of this webinar, there are things like, I've never heard of that. It'll be interesting to see which things pop up that depending on the group that you survey, what answers you get on that. Oh, in North Dakota, Office 365. Oh, they have Teams, which is similar to Google Classroom. Yes, Julie is our Microsoft person.
And we actually have Office 365 here in South Dakota too. So in South Dakota, we have districts that are both, they're either, they may be using both or are using one or the other. But yep, they do have those nice similarities, which is nice when you're trying to do those collaborations.
And one of the other things that we have a lot of students who come and go, and I have to say they, we have students who come from Sioux Falls, and we have another one from North Dakota. I just had one who came from Batesland, and they're like, oh yeah, we use Google Classroom. So it's kind of a universal thing, and that helps them get started.
It is nice when they come with that familiarity. Oh, and Shelley, you like the idea of sending quick text surveys to your staff to, see where they're at. I like that, and I also like the idea of it gives you that input in terms of where to focus, depending on your audience. If you're trying to incorporate a little more tech ideas or help your teachers see where they're at, so you can then customize what you want to present them.
Exactly.
Christy, I like that. You're going to send a text survey to your staff. Oh, I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with, because I just think this is such a good opportunity to see where people are and see, well, and get them thinking. Even us and looking at that little survey we did, like we pointed out, there's a number of things where we could have had some in-depth conversations on various the sources or how to read the URL or all that kind of stuff. And so just definitely a nice way to kick off those conversations, which is another big part of Dr. Mattson's book, is conversation.
Yes, in addition to the online conversation, some face-to-face conversation.
All right, and so I think the only thing left, oh,
that's a good point, Shelley. There's some basic skills that teachers just need to know. I think, too, one of the things from your survey you might find, maybe there are 10 teachers that want to know more about Google Classroom or something. You could do a little informal instruction there.
So when
oh, okay, good.
You didn't lose me. When you guys, the only other thing left for the assignment is that share and discuss the information you discover with your colleagues on the post on the Reaching Out Facebook group. And I have to say the discussions on there have been really good. I appreciate the sharing that's been happening. It's been nice to see what you guys are doing. And then we also wanted to real quick focus on the upcoming events. So it is February 7th. So the online course 2 OER Exploring Free Resources for Your Learners has been launched. And so you have until May 31st to get that done. I'm not going to be able to get an extension on this one. So please do your best to get it done by the deadline. Otherwise, it'll be awkward. TIE conference is coming up. I sent out the registration information for that. And so you should have a code for all the grant participants. Carmen, I will send you the information separately. I just haven't gotten that done because I had to ask a question and I just got the answer when I was on the road this week. So TIE conference, there will be a graduate credit associated with that, and that assignment needs to be completed by April 30th, and so you'll get that at the TIE conference. And I mean, it's just a paper. It's not a big deal. It's basically, what did you do at the TIE conference? And then the webinar series 1, which is what you're in right now, our next session is on March 7th, and then our last one will be April 4th. And for that, if you want the graduate credit, you'll have to complete all the assignments by April 30th also, because we just aligned that with the TIE conference. So that is, I think, the end of our webinar. Do you need to ask for the, okay. So Carmen comments about learning how to read our URL is valuable. Yes. So true. And Shelley, do you need to ask for the credit for attending TIE? No, if you're attending TIE, we are assuming that you are going to get the credit through us. And so you are good to go. You'll have to ask for the credit for this if you want this credit. If you're and I'm sorry, this is so confusing, but it's confusing to us too, if it's any consolation.
Yes, thank you.
If you need if you want graduate credit for this and you are attending TIE, you can say, hey, I want graduate credit, and we'll give you the URLs to register, and you can pay for that credit. If you are not coming to TIE, this is your graduate credit, and it'll happen. And we'll get that all hammered out. I mean, I'm not super worried about it, really. It'll be fine. So cool. Well, thanks guys for your comments, and I'm glad it was fun to. It's just so fun to see everybody and touch base and everything. I'm glad we're doing these webinars.
And if you don't want the credit or the CEU, you could just come hang out with us at the webinars. Thank you very much.
All right. So thanks, guys.